If you're planning to visit Malta, make sure you watch this video because in it, I'll be sharing all sorts of tips and must-knows for first-time visitors. Hi, I'm Christina from happytowander.com, and honestly, Malta is one of my favorite underrated destinations in Europe. It is such a beautiful country, one of the smallest countries in the world, in fact, but in that small area, they pack so much culture, so much amazing food, so much history, and I highly recommend you visit if you've never been there before. So before you do that, be sure to watch this video. I'm gonna be sharing all my best tips and must-knows for first-time visitors. First off, when we talk about the country of Malta, what we're really talking about is this set of islands right here. The three largest islands are the only ones that are inhabited and are known as Malta, Gozo, and Comino. In terms of how long to plan your trip, Malta is a very small country, but the fact is it's absolutely packed with amazing sights and attractions, so I'd highly recommend going there for at least 4 days, especially if you plan to go to Gozo or Comino while you're there. Now, speaking of Gozo, a lot of people, myself included, tend to go to Gozo as a day trip, but I highly recommend if you want to make the most of it to actually stay a night there, maybe stay 2 nights there, because it's an absolutely magical island and there's tons to see there beyond the typical must-sees. Another great plus for Malta is it's relatively affordable compared to some other European destinations, and so I think you get a lot of bang for your buck, although it is starting to get quite expensive in some of the more touristy areas. That said, Malta is very compact, so if you want to save money, actually a really good idea is to stay maybe outside of Valletta, which is the capital and where the most expensive hotels are. You can easily stay in the 3 cities and then take a really quick boat ride over, or you can stay in Slima, although that's also quite expensive these days, but there are a lot of different options. And if you want to go even further off the beaten path, you can book a stay somewhere more remote, which will obviously be cheaper. And it's also just a nice way to kind of escape the crowds and explore a bit more off the beaten path as well. Now, in terms of the best time to go, Malta is commonly considered a beachy, hot summer destination. So a lot of people will come here in the summer. But honestly, if you're like me and you're planning to visit Malta for the historical attractions and to see the landscapes, summer might be the worst time to go just because it's really, really hot and it gets very busy and chaotic and more expensive as well. For me, I think I'd really recommend going in the spring. My first trip to Malta was in April and the temperatures were just honestly perfect and it wasn't super crowded. I've also been in August and I just remember it being so hot that I wasn't really able to enjoy myself. That said, if you do plan on going in the summer, some tips I have for maximizing your time is to get up really early. Just get up right after sunrise, and then that way you can explore town and go to attractions when it's not too hot and also when it's not too busy. Now, I love visiting Malta, but the major issue with it is that it's very tough to get around. And the reason for that is Malta is a very tiny country with a very big population and increasingly more tourists every year. And so it is actually one of the most densely populated countries in the entire world. And so with that comes a lot of chaos on the roads and also permanent traffic. For that reason, renting a car isn't ideal, but if you want to get more off the beaten path or you want to see a lot more attractions during your time in Malta, it is actually quite essential to have a car. I got really lucky because both of my trips to Malta have been with work. And so each time I've had a driver able to take us places. And so I think that's a really good option if your budget allows for it. Luckily, Malta is quite affordable and booking private tours and transfers can actually be really cheap. So for instance, you can actually book a tour from Malta to go to Gozo for the day and you get transport and lunch is included and all of that is only 80 euros, which I think is not bad at all. So if I were to plan my own trip to Malta today, which I wish I was, what I would probably do is not rent a car and instead pick a base and then book day tours out of that base so that I can get all the perks of having a vehicle and not need to rent my own. That said, if you're on a budget, the good news is buses are actually very affordable in Malta. So a typical fare for one-way trip is about €2, and if you book any of the discount passes, you can get it for way cheaper. So the best option for tourists is either getting a 12 single-day journeys card for €15, which saves you pretty much half price on each journey. Or if you plan on being in Malta longer and you think you're going to take the bus a lot, you can also get a 7-day Explore card, which offers unlimited journeys for €21. And there also seems to be another option that's the Explore Plus Meep, which offers unlimited travel as well as 2 ferry trips. I couldn't find the price for this on their website, so it's unclear if it's still something that they offer, but be sure to ask. And you can get these cards at a bunch of different vendors all across Malta. You can find a full list here. Now, all that said, it's worth noting that buses in Malta can get really busy and are notoriously unreliable in terms of punctuality. So that's why I'd advise booking with a driver a tour if you can afford it. But just keep that in mind that, if you're waiting for a bus, sometimes it'll come early, sometimes it'll come late, sometimes it'll be full in peak season and you'll have to wait for the next one. So it's not really the most reliable or convenient way to get around, but it is very cheap. Another tip I have for you is to do a bit of research about the history of Malta before you arrive. I usually would recommend this for any destination, but specifically for Malta, this is really important because this tiny country has had such an interesting and turbulent history, and understanding the history will really help you understand sort of the unique cultural mix that you encounter when you get to Malta. For instance, there are some temples on the island that are 1,000 years older than the pyramids of Giza. So there's a lot of history there, and it's really, really interesting to read about. Now, beyond just having years and years of history under its belt, Malta also has a very unique character that is unlike any other place in the world. And that's probably because up until 1964, they were actually under continual occupation from a bunch of different groups. And so the unique identity of Malta that we see today is actually thanks to the combined influence of the Carthaginians, the Romans, the Byzantines, the Arabs, the French, and more recently, the British. Now, another interesting byproduct of Malta's history is that it is remarkably British in a lot of ways. This shocks a lot of first-time visitors. It definitely shocked me. I knew that Malta was a part of the British Empire once upon a time, but I didn't realize just how much of the influence you'd see in the day-to-day. For instance, they drive on the left side of the road. You have to bring an adapter because they actually have the 3-prong plugs just like in the UK. They have red phone booths in certain parts of historic Valletta. All these different things that really reflect the British influence. The good thing is though, you don't need to bring any alternative currencies if you're coming from Europe, just because they do use the euro here. Now, some good news for English speakers. English happens to be one of the official languages of Malta, so you'll have no trouble getting by with English, especially in touristy areas. Pretty much everybody speaks it. Of course, it is still more polite to at least know the basics in Maltese like hello and thank you. So to say thank you, it's a simple grazie. If you're saying good morning, it's a simple bonjour. If you're saying good evening, it's bonsoir. And if you're saying good afternoon, it's waranof senari tayeb. Yeah. I know, it took me a very long time to get that. So maybe just say hello to people in the mornings and the evenings. As I mentioned before, Malta has been influenced by so many different cultures over the years, and based on their cuisine, they've literally just taken the most delicious parts of every culture that's come through there and put it in their food, because I love Maltese food. There are so many delicious specialties that you have to try. So a few of them include pastizzi. You can find these everywhere. They're super cheap. They're like little pockets of joy that are wrapped in a crispy phyllo dough, and it's usually filled with ricotta or peas. Another must try is imaret, which is a date-filled pastry that sometimes they serve with like creamy Maltese ice cream. I don't know what they put in their ice cream, but it is so thick and so delicious. Another one is stufut talfinek, which is like a rabbit stew, and it's just like the most tender and delicious dish. Another one's bigila, which is a creamy bean dip that goes really well with just everything. It's so tasty. And there's also bracioli, which is translated to beef olive, but that's just like a really strange translation. It's more or less just like beef rolls that are stuffed with egg, bacon, breadcrumbs, stuff like that, and then braised in this like wine sauce. And lastly, apart from all those specialties, be sure to try the seafood, okay? As you can imagine, there's a lot of sea around Malta, so there's a lot of amazing seafood to be had, especially if you're going to one of those fishing villages like Marsaschlak. Oh, the fish is like the freshest fish that you'll ever try. It's so good. So make sure to try some of that. Now, to get your attention back after talking about all that food, another thing to keep an eye out for is churches. So in Malta, they have so many churches, almost one for every day of the year. So needless to say, as you're walking around, you're definitely going to encounter a church or two. So if you're passing by and the door is open, be sure to peek in and take a look, because Maltese churches are insane. They are so beautiful, so detailed. The most famous one is definitely the St. John's Co-Cathedral in Valletta, but there's a lot of really nice hidden gems scattered around as well, so be sure to poke your head in and take a look. That said, make sure your shoulders and knees are always covered. I would really recommend bringing a scarf or something to drape over your shoulders, and to wear longer pants if you plan on going in, just out of respect. Now, before we wrap up, I do want to do a quick Instagram versus reality session, because I think Malta is just one of those places that's so beautiful and it's so photogenic, but a lot of people tend to post photos from the same places that don't necessarily give an accurate picture of what it's actually like to visit. So first off, if you've seen photos of this amazing spot in Malta, unfortunately, it no longer looks like this. If you haven't heard, this natural arch was once known as the Azure Window. It was a very famous arch, but sadly it collapsed into the sea in 2017, and so it's no longer there. I'm really sad because this collapse actually happened about a month before I visited Malta for the first time, so it's really sad that I never got to see it, but alas, there's a lot of other great places to see as well, so just keep that in mind that this arch no longer exists. Another spot you'll see lots of photos of is Popeye Village, this very colorful village that people often pose with in the background. And what you need to know about this place is it's very pretty, but it's actually quite far up north. And so it's not really that close to Valletta and not close to a lot of the main tourist attractions. So you will be kind of going out of your way to go see it. Another thing is it's not just a cute fishing village. It's actually a film set from the 80s that was converted into a Popeye themed amusement park. And to this day, I don't know very many people who have actually gone inside the amusement park, but I have, because I love stuff like that. And I honestly have to say, I really loved it because I love quirky and strange little attractions. But if you're looking for a full-on theme park, you're not going to find it here. It is quite outdated, but overall, if you are going with kids, I think it's a great option. If you love quirky attractions, I think it's a great option, but otherwise, I wouldn't necessarily make it a priority. Lastly, we have to talk about the Blue Lagoon on Camino. So most of the time when people post photos, it'll look like this. And actually when I went in April, it did look like this because we took the last boat over and we practically had the island to ourselves, but it wasn't warm enough to swim. So anyways, we just kind of like looked at the water and then went home. But if you go in the summer, this is definitely one of the most popular spots to go swimming. So it's not gonna look like this. There's gonna be tons and tons of other swimmers. In fact, I've read some reviews that kind of liken this experience to swimming in a hotel pool. So just know it's not gonna be super quiet and peaceful. So just keep that in mind and have your expectations in check. All right, last but not least, this is a very dorky tip, but I highly recommend you binge watch TV shows and movies that were set in Malta before your trip. And the reason I say this is because over the years, Malta has been used as a film set time and time again because it's such a unique and beautiful place. So I guarantee there's probably a movie that you've watched that has filmed in Malta in the past. Some big names include Assassin's Creed, Murder on the Orient Express, Gladiator, Troy, and season 1 of Game of Thrones. So be sure to watch those and just get hyped for your trip because I think it's just so fun to be able to go to a place and recognize them from a TV show or movie that you watched. All right, I hope you enjoyed that list of Malta travel tips. As usual, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And if you want more practical travel videos just like this one, be sure to like and subscribe for more. All right, I'll see you guys next week. Bye!